Welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have founder of Healthpreneur, Yuri Elkaim. Welcome.
How's it going, Majeed? Thanks for having me, buddy.
Good. My fellow Canadian and my friend on a mission to help wellness practitioners grow their practice. We're going to talk about webinars, and you're my favorite TikToker.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't have a booty that I shake online. So hopefully the knowledge is doing its job.
Yeah. Well, you're really a practitioner of give away the most valuable information for free that whatever you're actually selling must be even better.
I hope so. Yeah.
And the first time I saw you, Yuri, you were leading a 7-figure mini mastermind workshop in LA at Black Belt. And I didn't introduce myself. I don't know if we actually met, but I saw you're teaching the people who I think are already making $1 million what to do next. So let's talk about your backstory. You were a practitioner and then you started helping other practitioners build their business. So can you give me the backstory?
Yeah. So backstory is I lost my hair when I was 17 to an autoimmune condition. That's what got me into health. That's what pretty much, most health issues get people into health, which is why I love this space. So that got me into that. And I played pro soccer during those years as well, so I had like the fitness sports side and then like the health, nutrition. I was like, I got to figure this out. So I did studies in kinesiology and then holistic nutrition, started professionally working as a trainer and nutritionist, did that for 7 years, one-on-one, grinding away 12 to 14 hours a day, underpaid, overworked, burnt out. 2005, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And this internet thing was around for a little bit. So I was like, maybe I'll set up a website. And so that's kind of like my first dipping the toe in the water of the internet. But for the first 3.5 years of my business online, and that business was, like information, selling, workout programs, nutrition stuff online to people that I didn't know. Right. So I was trying to live the laptop lifestyle, which didn't happen. It took me 3.5 years. I was making poverty line income, had no clue what I was doing, but I was working harder online than I was in person and making close to nothing. And then I got some coaching in 2010, started going to live events, meeting actual people and learning, and everything took off from that point. So we built a very successful business. And then several years later, I had a number of other practitioners in our space ask me for business advice. They're like, what are you doing? And this happened over and over again. And I was like, there's a bit of a gap. There's all these amazing practitioners who don't have the marketing and business acumen that I've acquired over 13 plus years now. What if I were to teach them this stuff? And that's kind of where Healthpreneur came out of. So we started it 7 years ago. And having been online for a very long time, I've done everything. Like every business model you can think of, whether it's selling ebooks, affiliate stuff, launches, live webinars, summits, I've done everything. And when I started Healthpreneur, I was like my other business, I eventually sold because it was a friggin' complexity nightmare. And I was like, I never want to even get close to that type of business again. So I made a very conscious decision with Healthpreneur to say, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to do one thing extremely well. So we had one acquisition channel, one coaching program, and that was it. And that's what we did for the first 3 years. We had no social, nothing. And then as we grew, we had more resources and team members to start, expanding in terms of what we do. So that's why we do stuff like TikTok now, YouTube, Instagram. Still, like that accounts for less than 2% of our acquisition. But I'm building this for 50 years down the road. So I'm willing to do stuff today that I don't need to see any return from, which is why I happily do this. But that's kind of where it started. And, our goal with Healthpreneur is to really help health professionals make their dreams happen in the service of others. And that means building the skill set of learning how to run a business. Most health practitioners buy themselves a job and they just want to leave the job. Like they're like, I want to get out of my clinic. I can't stand this anymore. The medical model in the first place is broken and it leads to nothing other than burnout. And we want to solve that. But specifically us, like we help them build businesses online. So telemedicine, coaching type of businesses where they can work from anywhere, have more time and location freedom, and still serve people at a very, very high level, even more so than they could in person. Most of our clients get better results for their clients virtually than they did in person. And when people hear that, they're like, there's no way that's possible. Trust me, we've worked with more than 1,300 clients. We've seen it time and time again. But again, when you don't know, you just poo-poo everything. So that's kind of the vision, is to really give practitioners and coaches in our space a better vehicle to acquire clients, deliver amazing results to them virtually, so they can enjoy the process as well, instead of just, killing themselves as martyrs. And then building a brand that leaves a dent in the world, so that, in the future, when practitioners think of like, how do I help more people? How do I build a business that's going to be more virtual? They think of Healthpreneur, and that's what we're looking to build.
Beautiful. So you're helping practitioners build their business so that they can make their dreams come true. You have a 50-year plus vision for your Healthpreneur.
As long as I'm alive.
Beautiful.
Probably more than 50 years. But
what was the one channel for acquisition for the first 3 years?
Facebook ads. So the business model that we run our business on is exactly what we teach our clients. So we call it a perfect client pipeline. It's Facebook ad, which, by the way, when I say Facebook ads, it's really Facebook and or Instagram ads. I don't think a lot of people recognize that at the check of a box, you can be running on both. So it's under the Meta umbrella. So whatever. So Facebook ads to an evergreen webinar, to an application, to a phone call. That's our model. And that's what we did. And we still do. 95% of our revenue comes from that.
Well, this is why I wanted you on this podcast. What I help my clients with is building the webinar, and making it dramatic, and helping them with their delivery and helping them tell their story. But I would love to learn from you, what's the difference between a webinar that sells well and a webinar that you can run an endless number of ads to, and it's either not going to produce applications or it's going to produce bad applications?
Sure. So I call this, like, our webinar style, we call it teach to sell, as opposed to teach to teach. And I remember when I first started Healthpreneur, I actually started this as a 2-day live workshop. And I remember one of the first attendees was sitting beside me, and she was showing a webinar she had done. And she's like, this is just not converting. Can you have a look at this? And I was like, yeah, show me the slides. And I just kind of sifted through her keynote. And within 2 seconds, I was like, I see why. And she's like, what am I not seeing? I'm like, you're giving away everything in the webinar. You're telling people how to do what they need to do. And the purpose of the webinar is to show know-how with know-how. It's very much like a documentary. A good documentary will shift your belief around a topic. It'll get you thinking differently about whatever the topic is, but it doesn't give you the recipe. So one of the documentaries that comes to mind for me is The Game Changers, which was a documentary that was produced by vegans to promote vegetarianism, right? More of a plant-based diet for performance, et cetera. Not once in the documentary did they show you how to make a green smoothie. Not once did they give you a recipe for a meal plan for a day. What they did do was show you ample amounts of proof and story about why adopting that type of lifestyle is a must. Now, when I posted this, I'm like, maybe I should go vegan again after watching the documentary on Facebook. Floods of comments. Oh yeah, well, obviously it was produced by vegan athletes. I'm like, that's the point. You have a voice, you have a philosophy, and a webinar is like a documentary. It's you with a 100% biased perspective of how you think this topic can be solved, and it's you presenting that. The people watching it either think you're full of shit or they buy into it. And if they buy into it, they want to take the next step. That's what the webinar's goal is. And so a webinar that converts does a really good job at getting people to buy into the philosophy, not the thing you're trying to ultimately sell, which could be a coaching program. I think a bad webinar that doesn't convert ends up looking a lot like a YouTube video, which is, in this webinar, I'm going to show you the exact 3 things to do to X, Y, or Z. YouTube's awesome. It's very tactical, right? It can be. But the reality is that when people don't pay, they don't pay attention. So you're going to get people on a webinar, and I see this, and I've seen this, is like, health practitioners want to be of service. They want to help people. They want to give people stuff. But what are you going to do? You're going to tell them take 2 tablespoons of fish oil and 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and the viewers are going to be writing this stuff down. And they're like, cool, awesome. I scratched the itch. I feel like I'm making progress. This was the best webinar ever. And they're out. By contrast, you've made no money. You think you've helped them, but they're not getting any further because now they're on their own. But you think you've done a good job because now they're giving you like, maybe the occasional email that's like, oh, this is the best thing of all time. Where people get tripped up is, and I see this because our clients run Facebook ads, some people will leave negative comments to be like, this is a waste of time. It was a sales pitch in disguise. I'm like, cool, delete the comments. Because what you're not seeing are all the other people who are booking calls with you and paying you money because that webinar transformed the way they thought about this and saw you as a better solution for that issue. And that's where people get tripped up, is they want to please people as opposed to understanding what's required for people to transform. And so that's kind of the difference for me, is like the teach to sell versus teach to teach. Teach to teach is great for content once they're in the program. The webinar's goal is to sell the philosophy. It's to talk about the why and the what, not the how.
So the webinar shows why. The webinar shows the philosophy.
Yep.
It's different from a YouTube video because the YouTube video shows exactly what to do and it has all the instructions and it scratches the itch. So the webinar is not intended to scratch the itch. It's intended to excite and waken up the why, the inspiration, which leads people to the application.
Well, it's to turn the itch into psoriasis.
Very good.
Because, to be honest, I do a lot of YouTube as well, and I give away a lot of stuff. But even then, I tell people in the videos, I'm like, you're likely not going to do well with this because you're not paying for this. And like, even in our webinar, there are some aspects that are very tactical. I'm like, here are the 4 steps of the pipeline. It's this, 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 and this. Now, how much can I possibly tell someone in 1 hour for them to be masterful about how to write Facebook ads, how to run them at a profit, how to build a webinar with all these nuances, how to run sales calls, how to deliver coaching? How can I possibly do that in an hour? It's impossible, right? And so my thinking is, number one, I don't take opinions and advice from anyone who isn't paying me money. So if someone is like, that was a waste of my time, I'm like, great, see you later. Because I know I've helped thousands of people who resonated with it. And I know that I'm not going to change my messaging to appease some people who are looking for freebies. So YouTube can be more tactical depending on the nature of the content, but your webinars can also be tactical to some degree. But I think the key is understanding that when I say kind of like turning an itch into psoriasis, what I mean by that is, if I'm presenting our perfect client pipeline, which I do in our webinar, I'm saying, here's how it works. Okay, but I'm sure you can understand, for the sake of time, I can't walk you through every framework and template we use for Facebook ads here. I can't walk you through X, Y, and Z. So what I'm doing now is I'm showing all sorts of other open loops and problems they're not even aware that they have, that they're going to run into if they don't have the right guidance. And even if people are like, you know what, I think I got this, the biggest thing is helping people understand. It's one thing to understand this. It's a very different thing to know what to do when this doesn't work out the way you thought it would. What do you do then? And that's the difference. That's where people lean into mentorship and coaching, and people have been there 1,000 times, because in a split second, they'll tell you exactly what the blind spot is and how to fix it, versus you spend the next 5 years trying to do it on your own.
What's the process of improving the webinar's effectiveness? Do you say like make 4 different versions and see which one works the best? And, how do you find people change the webinar to make it more effective?
So I think the beautiful thing about a coaching business is that you're getting people on the phone. So you're getting direct intel from your market, which is the best feedback you can get. If you're selling, a couple $100 course to a checkout page, you don't have the luxury of that same feedback. So I was just speaking with a client earlier. He had 16 calls booked from his webinar. 1 person enrolled, which is a very low conversion rate. And so the conversation was around, we have some poor quality leads that are booking calls. And I told him, like, that's the first part of the process. It either works like a charm right away, or this happens, is people book calls and you're like, these are not the right people. But it's an absolute godsend, because you have 15 conversations with people that you never want to speak to again. So you take that data, You go back into the webinar and you start to put in qualifiers. So before we dive in, this is not for you if XYZ, right? This is only for you if whatever. If that's you, let's keep going. If not, save the time. At the end of the webinar, same idea. If the next step is to book a call, this call is for you if whatever your perfect client criteria are, and it's not for you if this. The more clear you are about that, the more effective the webinar becomes in terms of the conversion side of things.
Very good. How about pricing? I assume that you have a free webinar to a free phone call to a high ticket sale.
Yep.
Is that true?
Yep.
Is there any times that you ever recommend low ticket, like pay $20 to watch the webinar, or pay $50 to take the strategy call, or buy a course for $97 and then sell the high ticket?
I love this question because my answer is usually no. And so I share this because my previous business, we did all this stuff, right? We did the tripwire offers, the $10 things, the 47, the whole upsell flow, all that stuff. And to be honest, like it is very hard, especially with paid traffic. It is close to impossible to make that work unless you are an absolute beast of an operator, like from a copy perspective, from tracking numbers and funnel setups. I don't think most people recognize how hard it is to make low ticket work. You can be, and this is what we don't do with our clients. Our clients are freaking naturopathic doctors and dietitians and health coaches, et cetera, who are not masterful online marketers. They have to learn some basic skills. And if I had to choose, if I said, okay, you have to become the world's best copywriter and understand how to build funnels and split test and track data like a maniac, to build like a low ticket thing that's going to work. Or you could build some fundamental skills around copy, around learning how to have a conversation with someone to sell something for 10 times as much money. Which one am I going to put more of my eggs into? And it's the latter, because the skill sets required are so much greater for low ticket. It is very, very hard to make that work. The other thing too is like, there's Dan Kennedy, who's one of the godfathers of marketing, says a customer is a customer. And I don't agree with that at all, because I've never seen that to be the case. As an example, we released a new program recently called Money Code. And we decided, we're going to bring this to market, ironically, at a low ticket price. So like $600. And we decided to test it initially with a free trial offer. So put your credit card in, free trial for 7 days. And we just wanted to see what was going to happen. We wanted to see what kind of people that would attract, what was the customer service looking like. And it was atrocious. Like the people that were coming in and asking for refunds, or they couldn't afford the $600 payment or whatever, the very reason they needed to buy the program was the reason they were using that they couldn't buy the program. Why I love high ticket is you completely obliterate all of that stuff. If you can't afford 5, 10, 20, $50,000, whatever it is, we're not speaking. Or maybe we are for a brief moment, but that's it. So you get much better quality people to work with. And I think in a coaching relationship, we all want committed clients. And the more people pay, the more committed they are. It's really simple. I've done this a long time, and I like more and more and more I see this. It's like, I call this the conversion conundrum spectrum. Everyone wants high conversions, but high conversions are the polar opposite to some degree of the commitment required to go through the process. A $0 trial is very low commitment. Getting someone on a 60-minute sales call and asking them to fork out thousands of dollars, that's a high commitment. Getting people to watch a 60-minute webinar is a commitment. But if you want committed clients, you have to get people jumping through hoops in order for those people to be committed to the process. You'll get people like, your Facebook ad is too long, the webinar was too long. I'm like, exactly, because your priority is to go watch Netflix, and this is not that important to you. But it is important to people who have a major problem that they want solved. And I disagree with a lot of my friends, very, very good marketers. They're like, successful people do not have time to watch webinars. I'm like, that is bullshit. It's not true, because I've tested add lead magnets, offer on the thank you page to book a call. I've done all of this stuff hundreds of times over. And it always comes back to when you don't get people committing in the marketing process, you do not get quality clients. I'm not saying it's impossible, obviously, but we've just found it's not even the juice is not worth the squeeze. My time is too valuable. My team's time is too valuable. I don't want people speaking with us unless they're fully indoctrinated before they have the chance to do so. And so that's why I'm not a huge fan of low ticket personally. And for most practitioners who value their time, they're way better off charging 10 times as much, and their clients will get better results. That's the most important piece.
So I'm curious what some of your target numbers are through this funnel. Like, if you have like a average recommended price point for the sale, and then do you have sort of like a target spend per application?
Oh yeah, we have like,
or what other kind of metrics?
All of it. So are we talking for like a health practitioner who's running this type of funnel?
Yeah.
So if you're a health practitioner, you're looking to serve clients with some type of health issue in a coaching program type of setup, $2,000 to $5,000 is a ballpark range, but you could charge, I wouldn't recommend going lower, but if you want to go higher, that's up to you. Less time is more valuable. So if you have a 12-month program, that's not as valuable as something you can do in 3 months. So just because it's longer or there's more stuff doesn't mean you charge more. If it's shorter and there's less stuff, assuming the outcome's the same or better, you should charge more. So $2,000 to $5,000 ballpark range, assuming you're targeting the general population, and I'm just referring to Facebook and Instagram ads here. Lead cost for a webinar opt-in, anything under $6 is good. You should be getting 3% of leads booking a call with you. So your cost per call booked should be well under $200. And then if you're decent on the phone, 1 out of 4 people will say yes. So when you look at how, in our case, on average, our clients see a 534% return on ad spend, basically what that breaks down to is let's say a $5,000 coaching program, they're going to spend in the neighborhood of $400 to $1,000 to acquire that client. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Got it. Very good.
And it's fun when you know the numbers, right? And that's what I love about this type of model is like, I love content marketing, right? Like I love putting out content, but in no way, shape, or form is there any kind of cause and effect or correlation to be like, you know what, if we post 7 TikTok videos a day, we can increase our leads by, there's none of that. It's just like, maybe some of it will work. With this, it's like, cool, I know exactly what I'm paying for a lead. I know exactly what I'm paying for a call booked. I can scale my ad spend and go from 0 or 100 to wherever I want to go. And I know exactly how long it's going to take me to get there. It's so predictable. And obviously there's deviation, but for the most part, like it's crazy. We've had clients go from, one of our unicorn clients, they came to us end of 2019. They were on the verge of bankruptcy and they watched our webinar and they're like, we got to do this. 3 months later, during the start of the pandemic, they went from that to doing $358,000 per month in the Hashimoto space. They now do north of $3.2 million per month. They built the world's largest thyroid coaching program.
Wow.
And people see that, they're like, they're scam artists. Like, well, do you even know who they are? Right? Like, instead of just like throwing stones, why don't you learn about how this is possible? Now, I'm not saying like that's going to happen in most cases. It won't. But, for the average person who comes in, like, we have a lot of naturopaths who love what they do. They're burnt out, but they have expertise with fertility, PCOS, whatever it is. We've had people with zero online following. This is the beautiful thing about this. Is like, if you don't have a social media following, you're not going to get traction for the next a couple of years. Like it's so hard to get visibility. So when you pay to play, when you amplify your message with paid traffic, and I'm not saying you're donating money to Facebook, I'm saying you're paying Facebook $1, Facebook is giving you 2, 3, or 5 in return. Like, why would you not do that? You have to understand how to do it first. So again, our clients come in, they don't know how to do this stuff. They're just like, I know how to help people solve this problem. We're like, cool, you've done the hard work. Let us show you the system. And within a couple months, they go from 0 to like 6 figures. It's crazy. Like and that's why we teach this, is like, I've not seen any other model that can get you from where you are to where you want to be. So our whole approach is you'll get 5 to 7 years of results in 12 months or less, which is pretty consistent with what we see with our clients. And it's just, you're learning fundamental skills in the process. They learn how to run their own Facebook ads, right? Not that they have to until the end of time, but it's a very simple process when you understand how. You don't have to outsource your marketing and pay exorbitant fees to agencies who are not going to be as good or care about your business as you will. So anyways, it's really exciting when you take the reins of your business and run it like a true business owner, as opposed to just, dancing videos.
I think this is a unique perspective that you have, and one I wish I would have had a few years ago, because I have paid over $30,000 to multiple Facebook ads gurus and made 0 sales. Yeah. And I've just finally got to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to run my own ads.
Yeah.
And so I was following the age-old wisdom: stay in your zone of genius, Majeed. You're not a Facebook ads guy. And so why do you have health practitioners who are in business, who want to help people become healthy? Why do you have them learning how to run their own Facebook ads?
Yeah. And I'm with you. I'm a firm believer that you should live in your genius zone, but you have to earn the right to get there. So if you are running a business, a clinic, it's a very different animal than running an online business. It's a lot harder to make an online business work because of obscurity and lack of trust and different skill sets. Brick and mortar, a lot of practitioners succeed in spite of themselves. They set up shop, they have a sign on the window, people fall in their lap. That never happens online. What that means is you have to build skills to put yourself out there online. Now, there's all sorts of different skills you can build. In our case, one of the most important skills is learning how to communicate, which is, you're masterful at. Communication can be written and it can be verbal. In our case, we're helping our clients write their own ads, which can also be an important skill for writing emails and writing social posts and general communication. It's a skill that if they gave to someone else, they would never have, and they would always be at the mercy of that other person, who, by the way, is never going to know their message as well as they do. Down the road, for sure, there are ways you can offload this, but initially you have to build the skill to climb this ladder. So that's part of it. Now, the Facebook ad stuff is like, well, okay, cool. Like, that can be a daunting thought of like, what does it even look like? Facebook ads is actually the easiest platform compared to most other platforms on the ad side. And the way we've done it, I mean, we've had 72 months in a row of positive ROI with our Facebook ads, and we spend more than $200,000 a month. We're very good at what we do. We've worked with some of the top agencies as well. And last year we brought everything back in house. We tripled our ad spend and reduced our cost per acquisition by 60% in 45 days. Because we're like, what the hell are you guys doing? We're paying retainers of $20,000 a month. It was just stupid. And we're like, no, we're bringing everything in house. We teach this stuff anyways. Let's just do it. And that's essentially what we help our clients do. Now, I'm totally with you that you'll get to a point in your business where you should not manage your own ad account, but you have to be dangerous enough where you can teach someone else, or if you're going to hire someone outside, you have to be able to know that they know what they're doing. And that's the biggest danger that I've seen in our space, where a lot of practitioners, they just want to do their thing. They just want to teach. They just want to whatever. And they don't want to worry about the marketing. I have, close friends in this space who are New York Times bestselling authors who have lost their shirt offloading their marketing to book launch experts and stuff because they just wanted to write the book. And I'm like, I understand, like, I get it. I understand it. But you have to understand there's two sides, right? If you don't do it yourself, you're going to pay a massive premium to someone else who's not going to do as good a job initially. And the initial skills that you will build in the first couple of weeks or months of learning this will stay with you forever. And eventually, I'm in agreement with you. You should offload most of this stuff down the road, but you have to build the revenue and profitability of your business to have the capacity to even hire these people, right? You can't be making $5K a month and then hire an agency. Like, they'll charge you more than you're making,
Right.
So that's you have to learn the skills, build your revenue, fill up your cup, have capacity, either hire people internally eventually, or if you feel comfortable working with someone outside like an agency, that's great. But you have to know exactly what it is you're offloading and be somewhat competent in that first.
Got it. I'd love to get your thoughts, Yuri, on the role it would play if you would recommend public speaking.
Yep.
Whether that's speaking at someone else's event as a guest speaker, or hosting your own event, or being the host of your own podcast, or speaking on someone else's podcast.
Yep.
Do you recommend that? And what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, as you know, I think it's probably speaking from stage to a group of people. It's probably one of the best conversion tools. Like in terms of like business generating activity, is probably one of the most effective. The nice thing with a webinar is that you can just speak your webinar, which is pretty much what I do, which is awesome. So it's like you do a webinar once and that becomes your signature talk, that you deliver from stage. It's also the same thing you can do on podcasts, right? Because it's your ethos, right? It's the thing you believe that you want to share with the world. And so I'm a huge believer in speaking, and whether it's podcasts or virtual stages or in-person stages or in-person stuff, I love it. I think where I've seen some people, and the mistake that I ran into early on in my career was I wanted to do that exclusively, right? I wanted to speak everywhere. But I started to run into the issue where I started meeting people who only spoke and they had nothing running their business. And I was like, oh, so you speak 250 days a year? I'm not sure I want to do that. And I remember the last time I spoke before the pandemic was at an event in Portland. And what was nice about that is I spoke from stage. And then we had a private lunch where I was able to then say, if you're interested in learning more, come to the lunch and we'll talk about the next steps. Because I'm not a huge fan of pitching from stage. I don't think it's respectful of time. I don't think it's respectful of the event. And with the event, we basically said, we'd love to host a private lunch where we can offer the opportunity for some people to learn more about what it would look like to work with us if they so choose. And so the talk was 100% just content and value. And I just at the end, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're interested in learning what this could look like, if you want our help, I'm hosting a private lunch, come join us. That for me, that feels really good. We also do the same thing if we're doing Zoom events. So if we have our big annual event on Zoom, we're not pitching in a Zoom call. We're like, if you want to learn more, come to this private breakout room. I think it's just respectful of everyone's time. So with that said, that event, I think from my perspective, when I'm approaching a speaking event, I always want to think of, is this going to be a better use of my time compared to sitting at home on the couch with my kids? Because right now, as we're speaking, our business is doing its thing. Our perfect client's running, perfect client pipeline's running. I could do nothing and help more people and make more money sitting from my house. So that speaking opportunity, as much as I love it, needs to be a big hell yes for me. And my encouragement for anyone speaking or wants to speak is build a system in your business that will run even when you're speaking. Because there's no better feeling than speaking and then going back to your hotel room and realizing that, like, you know what, while I was speaking, I also enrolled clients and helped some other people through this business that I have set up. And I think that's a really nice place to come from, because then you can speak from a place of, I want to do this, as opposed to like, I have to do this to make money.
Very good. Very good. I bet you have some good ideas about websites.
Sure.
And I Googled Healthpreneur right before we got on, and there was an ad at the top of Google. So it said healthpreneur.com. And I clicked on it and it brought me to a page with no pictures, no images, no videos, no tabs. It had one sentence and an opt-in.
Yep.
Right. Is that your main website, or was that just an ad?
It should have been an ad directing people to our webinar. So let me give you the thinking behind that. We run Google Ads because when people see us on Facebook, what do people do? They go to Google, they type in Yuri Elkaim scam, healthpreneur reviews, whatever those keywords are, right?
Right.
I want to be found for those searches. So we pay to be found for those searches, which is why if someone types in healthpreneur or whatever, that's an ad that we run going back to our own stuff. And that's been very, very effective for us. So that is kind of capturing intent-based traffic based on like, who is this person? What's this company? Back into that conversion funnel. Our main website is healthpreneurgroup.com, which is more of like, the corporate whatever about us, our mission, our vision, our team. But we didn't invest in a nice website probably up until 3 years ago. And it's hilarious. We spent like $2,000 on the design and development of it, which was a steal. I'm not a huge fan of spending a lot of money on websites. I think there's value in having something that people will see when they search your name, because the reality is people are searching on Google, right? I think it's smart to have, even if it's a basic ClickFunnels landing page. Hey, my name's Joe, blah, blah, blah. Here's some case studies, just something to give people a sense of this is a real person. But I don't think spending a lot of money or any amount of time for the first while in your business on a website is a good use of money or time, because no one's going to find your website. Okay. So the amount of traffic you get to your website from SEO is going to be zero. My previous business, we built our website to 1.4 million visitors a month. And it's a major undertaking. And the average amount of time on site was 1:21. So Wow. It's like, what's the point? Most people are never going to see your website unless you tell them to go to the website. So don't even bother wasting your time on that. And I just think people, like a lot of new-ish business owners, they get caught up in a lot of the wrong stuff, right? The logo, what the website looks like, getting pretty images done for Instagram. I'm like, none of that stuff matters. Like it doesn't, but they think it does. So I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of acquiring clients, getting them to pay you money, and transforming their life. That's it. And then when you have money and you've got some more bandwidth, then build a nice website.
Got it. Is there a solution to, I have so many strategy calls and I just don't want to do strategy calls anymore, but I still want to sell high ticket.
All right. So let's look at the alternatives, because I have this conversation sometimes. I had someone, I'll give you a good example. So someone's like, sends me a DM on Instagram. Hey, can you help me sell my thing? I said, cool. What is your thing? She's like, it's a course on XYZ. And it was a course on everything, right? Which is always amazing. I said, that's great. Like, what do you sell it for? She's like, $347. I was like, okay, here we go. I asked her, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, how many customers at that point have you have had purchased the program? And she said, I've had 20 people buy, all from Instagram and no ads or anything. Like it was like a badge of honor. I'm like, that's great. But you've now that's the maximum you're going to get from this, right? You've capped it out. And so then I said, are you open to adding a 0 to the end of your price there? And she's like, no, not really. I kind of just want to have a set it and forget it passive income type of thing. And my response was, are you aware of what goes into making that a reality? And I haven't heard a response yet. And it's been a couple of weeks. What's going to happen, because I've seen this, and I'm assuming it's going to happen, is she's going to go and she's going to continue selling her course at $347 because she doesn't want to get on the phone with people. She doesn't want to do all that stuff. And she is going to grind away trying to get people to sell a $347 course. Meanwhile, she could add a 0 and let's call it $3,500, charge for a premium price coaching program. Yeah, you can't send people to a checkout page. You have to get on the phone with them for that type of price point. So there's always opportunity costs, and there's always pros and cons. So if we don't do sales calls, we have to become masterful operators, like we talked about earlier, at having an evergreen funnel that's going to convert at a profit, not break even, at a profit, right? There's no sense in making $1 million revenue if you spent $999,000 in ads. Like it's a waste of time. So number one, you have to understand what your profit margins are. And is that funnel even going to make sense? Most people are not even aware of these questions, so they're not going to make it happen. I don't want to do sales calls. Okay, well, let's just say that you do some sales calls, which, by the way, I call them coaching calls because it's really just about helping people move through their own shit. So number one is like, I think you have to get real about how hard it is not to do the enrollment calls. So like path one that we just talked about, you have to be sold on that. Because if you think that's the journey to, the happy land, it's not going to happen. Okay, Yuri, okay, you sold me on the sales calls, but I don't want to do them all day long. Cool, you shouldn't. I don't do my sales calls. We have a sales team. but I did do my sales calls for a long time because I had to get very, very good at them. No one is going to sell as well as you are. No one's going to sell as well as the founder of the business. However, the founder of the business quite often doesn't become the best salesperson. Like I'm actually not the best salesperson in a one-on-one conversation because I'll just talk, I'll go off script and I'll do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But I have to be good enough to train others eventually. And this is the conversation I have with a lot of my clients, because in a service-based model that involves some type of discovery or sales call, the bottleneck becomes, after delivery is kind of figured out, I can't do more sales calls. So the question is, okay, increase your prices dramatically so you don't have to work with as many clients, or you have to open up more time slots on your calendar, which eventually leads to burnout, or you have to start looking for someone who you can train to do these calls with you and then eventually for you. And that's not easy, but it's very, very important to follow that process. I think one of the biggest mistakes I've seen is people offloading sales too quickly, but it's the most valuable use of your time. Like if you charge $5,000 for a coaching program and you speak with 4 people and one of them says yes, your effective hourly rate is $1,250. What else are you doing in your business that is more valuable than that? And when you start to recognize that, it's like, okay, well, I don't like selling. I don't want to feel salesy and slimy. That's just because you're not good at it. You don't understand it. When you understand things, you tend to like them more. So the best way to overcome that is just get good at sales, start to study it, practice it, get coaching on it, and understand that good selling is not about doing that stuff. It's about, in fact, the better you market, the less you have to sell. So you want people to show up on the phone with you who are like, I watched your webinar. It was amazing. I'm in, I just need some details. Those are the conversations you want to be having. But you can't have those conversations if you have a book a call with me button on your website for free. I don't know you, you don't know me, there's no context. So you have to get people jumping through hoops to jump on a phone call with you, and they're never asking you a question. So Majeed, what do you do exactly? Why should I work with you? You never want to have that question being asked. You want to be the person who's the Simon Cowell, the judge, assessing the person. And when you understand the nature of that dynamic and you start to recognize that you're the prize and the prize never chases, all of a sudden it's not a sales call. It's like, it's almost like border patrol. Like it's an interview of like, do I want to work with you as a client? So so you have to learn it. You have to get good at it enough so you can eventually train someone else. And then you can, offload it off your plate as your business grows.
Yeah. Speaking of the indoctrination before the sales call, I had a very humbling experience this past summer. I tried a new marketing strategy. So my normal marketing strategy is I get invited to deliver a webinar to someone else's audience. I deliver the webinar. They edify me. They say, Majeed's wonderful. I do an hour-long webinar, and then they book a call. And by the time they get on the call with me, they're like, just like you said, saw your webinar, love your work, watch your TikToks, read your book, all that stuff. Well, with this new marketing strategy, we were doing cold DMs in Instagram, straight to a strategy call. And I would ask on these strategy calls at some point, I'd say like, do you have any idea who I am? And they'd be like, no, we have no idea. You guys reached out to me.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work.
Dynamic.
That's not going to work. Yeah. All right, Yuri, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. You are my favorite TikToker. What is your TikTok handle?
That's a good question. I think it's actually my name, Yuri Elkaim.
I think it's your name. Yeah. So guys, follow Yuri on TikTok. It's the most clear and valuable business advice. You don't need to be a health practitioner. Really great stuff. He's given me some of the biggest insights I've had from TikTok. So I really appreciate you putting out that quality content. And go watch his webinar, The Perfect Client Pipeline. Where should people go for that, Yuri?
Probably like if you just go to our main website, healthpreneurgroup.com, like the first thing you'll see right there is like, watch the training, and you can just do it right there. Any
final words of wisdom or any questions I didn't ask you that I should have, Yuri?
Dude, like, who knows? Dude, probably millions, but you did a great job. I think the most important piece in business is just being very clear about what it is you want. And when you have that clarity of vision, using that as a contextual filter for the decisions that you make. Because online, you're bombarded by the latest strategy, the latest this, the latest that. And it's very confusing when you're not clear about where you're going, because you're like, oh, I'll do this and then I'll do that. When you are clearer, it's easier for you to say no to things because you have a path and you understand contextually at this point of my journey, this thing over here doesn't make sense. Maybe down the road, but for now, no. And that's hard to understand. And I think it becomes easier the longer you're in business. But I think as the founder and owner of your business, just spend more time really getting clear about what you want and where you want to go. It'll help you make better decisions.
There you have it. Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Thank you for being here, Yuri.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.